Hi folks, and welcome back to Handlebars and Holidays. Thanks for joining me once again. This is just going to be a short video that should be of interest to anybody that has a Zumo XT sat-nav and a BMW 1250 GS or GSA. If that sounds good, stick around, I'll be back in a sec. Hi guys, thanks for staying with me. So what I want to show you is this. Okay guys, so this is my Zumo XT, and as you can see there, it's mounted into the original BMW cradle. If I swing round, you can see it's pretty much flush. The gap round it is almost perfect. It fits in pretty much spot on. The locking system works as it does with the original nav, so you can lock it in there. So there you go. And best of all, it's completely free, takes about 15 minutes to do, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, so what I've done is just taken the screen off the bike just to make it a little bit easier for you to see what I've done. So this is the original Zumo mount. I've now got this wired in, so the wiring follows down there and tags into the bike. I'll come back to that in a second. So that's the original, the mount that comes with that attaches to the back of the Zumo. This here is the BMW cradle, which obviously I've just removed. And as you can see straight away, what I've done is I've drilled 4 more holes, a new set of holes. They're approximately 4 mil over to the right and 2 mil down. They don't interfere with the original holes, so you could always revert back to the original and no one would ever know. And then the only other thing is I found myself an old 6mm drill bit, cut it to about 40mm long, I would say, just rounded the end off a little bit with a grinder and drilled a 6mm hole just into this piece of plastic here very carefully. It's about 5mm deep, and then I've glued that in with a little bit of epoxy resin, so that's nice and firm. And then essentially what happens is this mechanism just slides backwards and forwards, a little bit awkward with one hand, and that drill bit there just slips under. I don't want to lose them bolts. It just slips under that little thing there, which you would normally press to release the Zumo. So it won't press down, you can't release it. So this is as secure as the original nav is. It is only bits of plastic wedging under other bits of plastic, essentially. I mean, this is a drill bit, so it's probably slightly stronger than the original. So this is the back mount that goes behind there. We'll come to that again in a second. And then the only other thing that I've done is when I've bolted this through the new 4 holes on here, I've just spaced them off slightly. So I found these little tiny nylon washers, and I've put 3 of those nylon washers on each of these bolts first, just to space it off ever so slightly. They wouldn't need to be nylon, I just happen to have some nylon ones. So that's all they are. So let's pop it all back together and I'll show you how it works. And the thing to remember with this is you've not bought anything. This is all free. Everybody's got a 6mm drill bit kicking around in the garage and a few screws, so it's all free. Let's get it back together. I'll show you how it works. You should just be able to see there the 3 little plastic washers, just spacing that off. And then essentially this just kind of spins round. I mean, you can do this aspect in your little workshop. It's only the fact that I've already got this wired into the bike. Normally you do all this mounting first and then sort the wiring afterwards. It's just that I'm kind of doing this. I'm doing all this a little bit backwards because I've had this working on here for a few months, and it's only because somebody asked me how I'd done it. I mentioned it in a previous video, and I said I'd do a little video just to show how I did it. So there you go. Let's carry on. So that's now screwed in place, and if I come around the front, you should be able to see that the bracket that normally goes on from the back, if I can just catch the light right there, it's actually offset. It's slightly off. That's because I drilled the holes. Can't get the little camera to just maybe you can just see it there. It's off by about 4 or 5 mil, so this is sticking over a little bit further than it should this way because everything was moved over. But this is all behind the screen, remember, so you can't see any of this. So the fact that that's offset, there's no need to re-drill this at all. You can use the original 4 holes in here. So all I've done there is clamp all that together. Remember, the washers are behind there. You can just see peeping through there the original hole there that bolt, you know, would have gone through. So yeah, if you leave this a little bit slack, just so you've got a tiny bit of movement in it, you can put the Zumo in and centralize the Zumo on this bracket. So when it's in, everything's centered. But with your key in and that unlocked, what you should be able to see there, I can just catch the light, is there's that pin going in behind there. So once you've pushed that over, turn to key, now that won't press down. So you can't get it off. If the Zumo was clicked on there now, you can't get it off. As soon as you turn the key, this can then be moved back and you can push that down. How are you going to push it down when the Zumo's in the way, you ask, and I am about to show you. So this little doofalaki that is for protecting that little rubber cap, that can just sit and clip onto the wire itself there, so that's nicely tucked up out the way. It's going to be behind the Zumo, you won't see that at all. And then as long as you are unlocked and this pin is pulled back, let me try and do this with one hand. So the Zumo sits in there and hopefully you can hear this. So that clicks in there beautifully. And that's now pretty rigid. To lock it in place, just push the little lever. That 6mm drill bit goes in behind the button, and you now, if you get your finger in there, I can feel the edge of the button with my finger. You can do this while the screen's on, it's very easy, but I can't push that down now. I can't release that. The only way that I can release that is to pull this back to get that drill bit out the way. I have to be careful I don't, and then I can pop that down. A little bit tricky with one hand, but there you go. All I'm doing there is pushing that down with the tip of my finger. It's very easy to get to. So essentially, let's just run through that again. So clip it in, flick that over, turn your key, and you are now completely locked on, nice and flush. You've spent nothing, and I think that's what you would call a good job. So all there is to do now is pop the screen back on, and I'll just show you once more. The other thing I just forgot to mention almost was the wiring. The wiring was actually very simple. When you take apart the original BMW Cradle and you take off the bit that would normally clip into the back of the nav, obviously you unclip the wire that goes down and you'll find the little connector that snaps into. So when you've done away with the bit that applies to the nav and you've put the bit that applies to the Zumo in, as I've just shown you, you can follow the same route down with the wire. And then you've got two options. You can either just splice into the wire. It would be a little bit awkward, a little bit messy. I very seriously considered doing that, but I decided in the end, I went on eBay. I'll put a picture on the screen now. I found these little connectors that are basically the BMW connectors, so you can just solder them onto the end of your wire and clip that on. Now, if I remember rightly, I have a feeling, bearing in mind I did this a few months ago, I think the polarity was the wrong way around. I think in the end I swapped them round and they work perfect. Definitely did that with something recently, and I think it was that. So if it doesn't work, flip the polarity around the other way. I think you'll find that'll solve the problem. But once you've put that connector on, it just snaps into the original BMW socket and everything works. You've got your power, so it's dead easy. So yeah, let's just pop the screen back on and I'll just give you one quick run through. So there we are with everything buttoned down. That little bracket that sits on the back of this bracket, the one that's slightly off center, once you put the screen on, you can't see that. And I think you would have to agree that that's a really nice, neat little install of the Zumo XT onto the BMW standard cradle. All works absolutely perfect, and best of all, it's free. So no need for any fancy adapter brackets or anything like that. What I would maybe suggest is if you're going to do this, I think it's worth spending the $10 or $12 on those little connectors. You get two for about $10 or $12. Get those first. Find yourself an old 6mm drill bit and a grinder, and it'll literally take you about half an hour. And nice to be able to do something that looks as neat as that for nothing. So hope this has been of some use. Thanks for joining me at Handlebars and Holidays once again. I've got a few interesting things coming up. Next video, I'll be showing you my new bike. So hopefully you've enjoyed. And as always, take care. Got my hand stuck under there. Ride safe.